I'm going to take you through a Ranger Rogue build that I've been using. So this build is purely focused on ranged attacks. Now I'm going to take you through the gameplay mechanics around fighting mobs and bosses around here and how you should be using the skills, and then be sure to stick around for the skill tree and also the aspects you should be running. Now in terms of gameplay, you'll be using Forceful Arrow as your basic skill. This has the added advantage of applying vulnerable after each 3 shots, and it can also knock down enemies, which is useful. In terms of your main damage dealing skill, you're going to be using Penetrating Shot. Now this does pierce enemies, and if you apply it with the right aspects, it will also splinter off into other arrows as well. Now this is going to be your main damaging skill, so the way you want to use this is use Forceful Arrow to get up your combo points, and then you're going to be using Penetrating Shot. Now this is where you've got your 3 and 4th skills here. I've got Poison Imbuement and Shadow Imbuement. So when you're using Penetrating Shot, you usually want to have at least one of these active. Now as you'll see going through here, Shadow Imbuement is your best skill for clearing larger mobs of enemies, so you're always best to use that running into a mob first. This will mean that the enemies explode once you kill them, which is very useful in terms of clearing bigger mobs. Now your Poison Imbuement is going to be your other one you'll rotate through. This is better for elites and bosses, but you'll cycle through it when the Shadow Imbuement is on cooldown, just to keep maximizing your damage. Now in terms of movement, you've got Shadow Step there and Dash. So Dash will help you to be able to get into position and move around the enemies in order to get in the right position when using Penetrating Shot. And then your Shadow Step is just your getting out of CC skill essentially, so you can use that to get out of CC, and it will also stun an enemy that you go to. So that's the main kind of rotation you'll be using when going through and clearing mobs throughout a dungeon. Now when you get onto the boss fight, it is fairly similar. You'll be using Forceful Arrow to work up your combo points, and then be using Penetrating Shot. Now you will be focusing on using the Poison Imbuement because that's going to do the most amount of damage, but I would cycle through your Shadow Imbuement as well while your Poison is on cooldown. And then you just really need to be using Dash in order to try and dodge the enemy attacks while you keep applying that poison damage and the critical damage from your Penetrating Shot. Now I'm going to take you through the skill tree and what skills you should be using your points on. Now in terms of the basic skill, you want to take 1 into Forceful Arrow, then Enhanced Forceful Arrow, and then Fundamental Forceful Arrow. Going over to your core skills, you want to put 5 into Penetrating Shot, 1 into Enhanced Penetrating Shot, and then Advanced Penetrating Shot. In terms of the passive, 3 into Stutter Step, 1 into Sturdy, and 3 into Siphoning Strikes. Then you want to go ahead and put 1 into Shadow Step, Enhanced Shadow Step, and Methodical Shadow Step, 1 into Dash, 1 into Concussive, and 1 into Trick Attacks, and then 3 into Weapon Mastery. Moving along, you want to put in 1 into Dark Shroud, 1 into Enhanced Dark Shroud, and 1 into Subverting Dark Shroud. Now I don't have this skill on my skill bar, but when I talk through the aspects, I'll discuss why I have that skill unlocked. Now you want to put 3 into Exploit and 3 into Malice. Going over to Imbuement skills, 1 into Shadow Imbuement, Enhanced Shadow Imbuement, and Blended Shadow Imbuement. 5 points into Poison Imbuement, Enhanced Poison Imbuement, and then Blended Poison Imbuement. You then also want to put 1 into Shadow Crash and 1 into Consuming Shadows, and then 3 into Precision Imbuement before moving into the ultimate skill area. Now you won't be picking up an ultimate skill, but you do need to put 3 in Innovation, 1 into Adrenaline Rush, and 3 into Haste. And then finally in your key passive we'll be picking up Precision. Now going over into the armor and aspects you'll be running. So on your helm I'm running 0.25 to 0.5 increased armor for 4 seconds, so that can stack up to 25 to 50% depending on the aspect. Then on the chest I'm running Lucky Hit, so when I hit a crowd control enemy there's a chance that crowd control effect's going to spread to another, which is handy with the imbuements we're running. Then on the gloves, this one here I will be changing. This is the one I mentioned. I'll be changing to Umbros aspect. Now this lucky hit, critical strikes with marksman skills are going to have up to a 60% chance to grant a free dark shroud, which is why I took that skill, and that's going to really help with some defensive capabilities. Now moving on to the next one, basic skill grants 20% damage reduction for 2 to 6 seconds, and that will be good for damage mitigation. On the boots, I've got dealing direct damage to vulnerable enemy has up to a 45% chance to daze them for 2 seconds. On the bow, skills deal up to 40% increased damage based upon your available primary resource. Now I am running a bow, but if you do get a good crossbow, it'll be handy to swap that in, as it is going to have increased vulnerable damage instead of damage to distant enemies. Now, in terms of the other two weapons, attacking enemies with a basic skill increases the damage of your next core skill, so you'll be using forceful arrow, and then penetrating shot will then proc that ability. And then basic skills gain additional attack speed. Then onto the amulet, I'm running penetrating shot damages an enemy, 2 additional arrows split off to either side, and they deal anywhere between 15 to 38% damage of penetrating shots base damage. That is getting the 50% buff for being on an amulet. Now in terms of the rings, I've got marksman skills have up to a 10% chance to create an arrow storm at the enemy's location, dealing damage. And then the final one, your imbuement skill effects have anywhere between 20 to 40% increased potency against vulnerable enemies. If you do have any questions around the build, feel free to post them down in the comment section, or if you have any alterations that you're running with, I'd like to hear from you. Otherwise, if you did find this video informative, please hit the subscribe button. I am releasing other build guides as well as more information going into Season 1.